You're listening to From Stillness, an audiobook for a mind in need of quiet. You walk through life believing the ground beneath your feet is solid, that your thoughts are your own, that your memories are accurate reflections of the past. You rarely question these assumptions. Why would you? Everything feels stable, familiar, consistent. But what if that's the trick? What if the very things you trust most, your sight, your memory, your sense of time, aren't showing you reality at all? But a carefully edited version designed to feel real, not to be real? Take something as ordinary as looking in a mirror. You see your face every day. You believe you know exactly what you look like. But you've never actually seen your own face, only flipped reflections in mirrors, distorted photos, or hazy mental images shaped by emotion and context. You've been relating to an illusion this entire time. Your brain isn't a passive camera capturing the world as it is. It's more like a film editor. It cuts scenes, rearranges moments, adjusts lighting, adds music, and presents you with the final cut. A version of reality tailored for usefulness, not accuracy. When you walk into a room, your eyes don't absorb every detail. They collect fragments. Your brain fills in the blanks, smoothing over gaps so you can move through the world without sensory overload. Your ears filter out most sounds. Your attention decides what deserves to be heard. And your memories? They're not recordings. They're stories reconstructed every time you revisit them, changing slightly with each retelling. Even your sense of time isn't reliable. An hour of boredom can stretch endlessly, while an entire year can vanish in a blink. Time itself doesn't change. Your perception does. Your brain compresses some experiences, elongates others, and stitches them together like a patchwork quilt that feels seamless even when huge pieces are missing. We live not in the world as it is, but in a version our minds construct a simplified interface that helps us function but hides most of what's truly there. And yet, we rarely notice. We mistake the edited version for the original. We take the illusion as truth. But once you begin to question, really question the world around you, something shifts. You start to see the cracks in the frame, the places where the edit doesn't quite hold. And it makes you wonder if even the most basic things, your face, your memories, your sense of time, are not what they seem. What else have you accepted without question? The illusion doesn't need to be dramatic to be powerful. It just needs to go unnoticed. And now that you've noticed, everything begins to feel different. You probably trust your memories. Most of us do. They feel solid, like files stored safely in the archive of your mind, ready to be pulled up exactly as they happened. But that's not how memory works, not even close. Your memories aren't snapshots. They're stories. Stories that your brain rewrites every time you recall them. Each time you revisit a moment from your past, your mind isn't playing a recording. It's reconstructing the scene, filling in gaps, coloring outside the lines, and sometimes inventing entire pieces that were never there. You don't notice the changes because the edits are subtle. A detail shifts, a face softens, an emotion becomes stronger or weaker depending on who you are today. And then, when you store the memory again, you save this new version, not the original. Over time, the truth fades, and what's left is a believable fiction. We remember what fits our current story. If you see yourself as the hero, your mind conveniently erases the moments where you were wrong. If you carry guilt, your memory might exaggerate the weight of your mistakes. Memory is emotional, it's biased, and it's fragile. This isn't a flaw in your mind, it's a function. Your brain doesn't care about perfect accuracy. It cares about coherence, about stitching your past into a narrative that helps you make sense of the present. But there's a cost. When you trust your memories without question, you build your identity on foundations that may not be true. You defend positions based on events that didn't happen the way you think. You carry pain from stories that have been subtly distorted with time. And if that's the case, if even your most cherished memories are flexible stories, then what does that mean for the self you've constructed from them? What if the person you think you've always been is just a character written by a storyteller you didn't know was at work? The deeper truth is this: memory is not a window to the past. It's a mirror reflecting your current self. And when you realize that, something unlocks. You don't have to be the person your memories say you are. You get to become someone new. Your mind wasn't designed to show you the truth. It was designed to keep you alive. That's a disturbing thought, but it explains far more than we realize. Every sight, every sound, every sensation you experience is filtered through a nervous system evolved not for accuracy, but for survival. The colors you see? Just useful signals, not objective qualities. The edges of objects? Convenient outlines your brain creates to simplify chaos. Even time, space, and cause and effect. They're all part of a mental interface, not the raw structure of reality. According to cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman, evolution doesn't reward truth. It rewards what helps an organism stay alive long enough to reproduce. And seeing the world as it really is? That's too slow, too complex, and often irrelevant. So the mind builds shortcuts, icons, a user interface for reality like folders on a desktop. You don't see what's in them. You just see enough to know what to click. In other words, you're not seeing reality, you're seeing symbols that your brain has learned are useful. And the longer you live inside those symbols, the more real they feel. But what if that's a problem? What if survival mode is blinding you from something deeper, something truer? It's why sometimes you feel a strange emptiness, even when everything is fine. It's why you can have success, comfort, even happiness, and still sense that something is missing. Because your brain's operating system is old, primitive. It's protecting you from lions that no longer exist while hiding from you the subtle, the sacred, the unknown. But once you see this interface for what it is, not reality, but a mask, you're free to look beneath it. And that's where everything begins to shift. You've had those dreams, the ones where everything feels real. You touch, you hear, you cry, you believe. A conversation with someone who's passed, a place that never existed, a version of you that behaves like someone else. And yet, in that moment, your mind accepts all of it without question. Flying? Normal? Time jumps? Unnoticed. A tiger becomes your friend, then your mother. Nothing makes sense, but it doesn't have to. Dream logic isn't built on facts, it's built on coherence. But here's the strange part. Waking life works the same way. Not because it's a dream, but because your mind, in both states, uses the same machinery to construct your experience. It fills gaps, makes edits, inserts meaning. It doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, does this make enough sense for me to keep functioning? And that's why things get eerie when you look closely. The objects you see, constructed interpretations, the people you meet, filtered through your memories and beliefs, the emotions you feel, influenced more by subconscious patterns than conscious choice. Just like in dreams, your brain invents a world and then convinces you it's real. So what separates waking life from a dream? Consistency? Duration? The fact that we agree on it? Maybe. But consensus isn't truth, it's shared illusion. The dream ends when you wake up. But maybe waking up in the deepest sense isn't just opening your eyes. Maybe it's questioning the framework itself. Not to dismiss life as meaningless, but to recognize that meaning is something we bring, not something the world delivers. The dream becomes dangerous only when you forget it's a dream. The mind's illusion becomes a prison only when you believe it's a fact. So don't be so sure waking life is different. It may just be a dream you've chosen to keep believing. Your brain is not a camera. It doesn't record the world. It edits it. Every second, your senses are flooded with more data than you could ever process. The color of the floor, the subtle hum in the air, the pressure of your clothes, the flicker of a light outside the window. You don't notice not because it's not there, but because your brain decides it's irrelevant. This filtering is not a flaw. It's survival. If you were aware of everything, all the time, you'd be paralyzed. So the brain cuts corners. It deletes. It guesses. It focuses on what it assumes you care about, based on your past experiences, your emotions, your story. But here's the catch. The more it filters, the less of reality you actually experience. Think of the famous gorilla experiment. People were told to count basketball passes in a video. Midway through, a man in a gorilla suit walked through the scene. Half the participants never saw it. Not because their eyes didn't work, but because their minds didn't expect it. And what the mind doesn't expect, it erases. This happens every day. You miss beauty in the ordinary because your brain is tuned to routine. You miss nuance in a conversation because your story has already labeled the person speaking. You miss possibilities because your brain only shows you what aligns with what you already believe. So what are you really seeing? Not the world, but a curated version of it. One designed not for truth, but for function. One shaped more by what you expect than what's actually there. And that makes you wonder, how much of life are you missing? Not because it's hidden, but because your mind has quietly decided not to show you? You move through life as if there's a single, solid you behind everything. One self, one voice, one identity. But that sense of self, the feeling of I, might be nothing more than a useful illusion. Neuroscience doesn't point to a single control center in the brain. There is no fixed location where the real you lives. Instead, your thoughts, emotions, decisions, and memories come from a web of neural systems, each competing, cooperating, and triggering at different times. Imagine a panel of voices behind the curtain. One speaks with confidence, another whispers fear, a third hums with doubt. And yet, the one that shouts loudest at any given moment becomes you. But a moment later, another voice takes over, and you feel like someone different, more decisive, more anxious, more hopeful. So which one is you? The truth is, you're not a single self. You're a dynamic system of selves. A shifting constellation of processes, all shaped by biology, experience, and context. Sometimes these systems contradict each other. You want to rest and also feel guilty for not working. You crave closeness and also pull away. That's not weakness. It's evidence that there is no single, unified self, just overlapping drives. This understanding can be liberating, because if you're not fixed, you're free. If there's no solid I to protect, then you can observe what arises in you without being trapped by it. You can learn to step back, listen, and choose, not from a rigid identity, but from a place of deeper awareness. What if the mind you believe is generating your thoughts isn't? What if consciousness isn't something your brain produces, but something it receives? For centuries, the dominant view in science was that the brain created consciousness, a byproduct of electrical activity, like steam rising from a boiling pot. But recent theories challenge that assumption. Some researchers now suggest the brain may act more like a radio than a factory, not generating the signal of awareness but tuning into it. If this is true, then consciousness might be something that exists beyond the brain, a field, a frequency, a layer of reality we're not yet equipped to fully explain. And the brain, just the receiver that picks up this signal and translates it into human experience. This idea isn't new. Ancient traditions have whispered it for millennia. In Vedantic philosophy, consciousness isn't inside you, you are inside consciousness. In Buddhism, awareness is not something you develop, but something you return to once illusion falls away. Think of those moments when intuition strikes before logic catches up. Or when you're lost in stillness, and a quiet clarity cuts through the noise. These experiences feel less like thoughts being formed, and more like something deeper being tuned into. If consciousness is a signal, then the you identify with is just one channel, one interpretation, one temporary arrangement. And if the channel can shift, maybe what we call self, identity, even reality, are just versions, not truths. Much of what you call your life is not actively chosen, it's scripted. From the moment you're born, inputs start arriving: words, rules, glances, rewards, fears. Your brain, ever efficient, begins building a framework. This is how you behave. This is what matters. This is who you are. By the time you're old enough to reflect, much of the script is already written not by you, but for you. Habits, opinions, reactions, even your idea of success. They're patterns, conditioned responses that fire faster than your awareness can catch. You wake up, check your phone, eat something that feels familiar, interact in predictable ways, react to people with the same defensive tone, the same anxieties, the same stories about what your life is or isn't. Days pass, years pass. But the script stays mostly the same. Studies in neuroscience suggest that up to 95% of your decisions are made subconsciously, automatic, fast, efficient. This makes survival easier, but it also makes awakening harder. Because when you think you're choosing, you may simply be repeating. But here's the truth. Scripts can be rewritten. When you pause and observe your automatic thoughts without reacting, without judging, something powerful begins. The observer in you grows stronger than the actor. You start to spot the lines in the script that no longer serve you, the scenes that make you feel small, the beliefs that weren't yours to begin with. This is the beginning of agency. Not dramatic change, just small shifts in attention, in choice, in presence. And from there, a new script can emerge, one built not on fear or imitation, but on awareness. Sometimes, reality slips just for a second. You walk into a room and feel like you've been there before, even though you haven't. That's déjà vu, a tiny rupture in your mental timeline. A brief moment when the script loops. Science calls it a neurological misfire, a memory glitch. But the feeling, it's something deeper. Like the curtain between dimensions thinned for just a breath. Other times, you dream with such vivid clarity that you question, when you wake, which world was more real. In your dreams, you feel love, terror, loss, as intensely as in waking life. You experience complex events, relationships, even wisdom. And then, it's gone, dissolved. But was it any less real than this? Then there's derealization, a condition where the world feels fake, distant, like you're watching life happen from behind a sheet of glass. Your vision works, your hearing functions, but something feels off. People describe it as living in a movie, like reality lost its texture. For some, this feeling fades. For others, it lingers like a question they can't unask. What ties these experiences together is one unsettling truth. The mind doesn't just interpret reality, sometimes it fabricates it. And once you've glimpsed that fabrication, even briefly, you can't fully unsee it. You start to wonder, if my brain can create entire worlds while I sleep, if it can trick me into thinking I've lived a moment before, if it can make waking life feel unreal, then what else am I mistaking for truth? These cracks in perception aren't failures. They're invitations. Not to paranoia, but to curiosity. What if reality is not what you've been told to see, but something vaster, softer, waiting behind the veil of your assumptions? You think you're living in the present, but you're not. Every sound you hear, every shape you see, every word you read is already in the past by the time you experience it. Your brain takes time to process information, meaning that now is always just slightly delayed. Like a live broadcast running a few seconds behind, reality reaches you with a built-in lag. It's only a fraction of a second, but it changes everything. Because it means you're always reacting to what has already happened. Your smile, your decisions, your emotions, all responses to a version of reality that's just behind the moment. You're never truly here. You're chasing a shadow of now. And yet, the present is all we ever claim to have. Be present, we're told. Live in the now. But neuroscience quietly reminds us, even the now is a reconstruction. The world you think you're engaging with has already moved on. You're always a step late, no matter how mindful you try to be. This isn't a flaw, it's a design. Your brain doesn't prioritize real-time accuracy. It prioritizes efficiency, safety, coherence. It gives you what you need to function, not what's factually precise. And once you see that the present is always a beat behind, a subtle awareness emerges. You begin to soften your grip, to stop needing each moment to be fully grasped, to find peace not in controlling time, but in surrendering to how your mind experiences it. If your memories are rewritten stories, your thoughts are recycled patterns, and your present moment is always a little too late, then what's left? Who's experiencing all of this? Strip away your name, your past, your likes and dislikes. Watch your thoughts come and go. Notice how emotions rise like weather, then pass. Beneath it all, there's something that doesn't move. The one who notices. That quiet presence. The awareness that watches the mind do its work. You've always known it, but rarely named it. It's not a thought, not a feeling. It's what remains when you stop identifying with the noise. That's the strange truth. You are not the thinker. You're the space the thoughts appear in. You are not the emotion. You're the stillness beneath it. You are not the story. You're the page it's written on. When you realize this, something fundamental shifts. You stop trying so hard to control the script. You stop clinging to the illusion that your mind has it all figured out. Instead, you start watching, listening, noticing, without judgment, without rushing to explain. And in that stillness, you discover a kind of freedom that can't be touched by time or thought. The freedom of being aware and nothing more. If today's reflection stirred something within you, a crack in the surface, a pause in the pattern, then let that silence speak. Let it expand. You don't need to fix or figure everything out. Just watch, breathe. Let the illusion soften. And when you're ready not to understand more, but to be more, we'll be right here in the stillness. Thank you for being here. If this resonated with you, consider staying a little longer. The next journey might be even quieter, even deeper.